So the work that we're doing in ELA is called Connections and Distinctions. These are related to our Farewell to Manzanar book. So for every chapter that we're reading in class, we are identifying connections, which are explained at the top here. Connections among individuals, events, or ideas made in the chapter. So you're looking for two things in the chapter that connect, two things that are related to each other. Or you could make a distinction. Some chapters have distinctions or differences between individuals, events, or ideas made in the chapter. So if there are two people, places, or things in the chapter that are completely different, you would call that a distinction, and you would label it as a distinction. So again, as you read each chapter, you want to be able to identify a connection or a distinction. You also want to be able to identify the correct author's methods for each chapter. So let's take a look at the example from chapter 1. We have a distinction, Jean's reaction and Mama's reaction to Papa's absence. So when Papa is taken away from the family, Jean and Mama have different reactions. Author's methods. You can see they give you some examples here. You have to check off the ones that can be found where the connection or the distinction is made. So allusion, examples, and metaphor cannot be found. Narration and reflection can, so we have those checked off. Now, once we have everything checked off, we have our connection or distinction we're going to write about. In our author's methods, we're going to write a paragraph-long response. So the first sentence should just explain whether you're writing about a connection or a distinction, what author's methods were used in the chapter, and what page numbers this connection or distinction can be found on. So in the model, it says the authors show the distinction between Jean's and her mother's reactions to Papa's absence by using exposition and reflection on page 8. So we're taking everything, all of the information we have from up here, and we're plugging it in for that first sentence. For the next sentence, you're just describing how Jean and her mother's reaction are different, since we're talking about a distinction. Again, that word distinction just means what's different. So Mama was not too worried, but as the days went by without information, she began to break down and started weeping uncontrollably. In contrast, so we have that transition in contrast to remind the reader we're talking about what's different. The chapter ends with Jean clinging to her mother's legs, wondering why everyone was crying. So you could see we have quote marks, which is telling us that this is the evidence from the chapter. You do need to pull evidence from the chapter to support your answer. So unlike her mama, Jean wasn't sad or worried. Now we're talking about how her reaction was different from her mom's. That is because she couldn't understand the seriousness of the events. This is a significant moment in the text because it begins to illustrate how Jean's perspective as a child was very different from her mother's and the other adults. The adults had more context and awareness of the terrible possibilities. So at the end of your response, in your own words, you're just explaining why this connection or distinction is important to the story. I hope this helps. Email me with any questions. You should have access to the book on Learning Ally if you do not have it. Or even if you do have it and you would like the computer to read the book to you, you could use Learning Ally for that. We just finished chapter 9 in class. So the chapters you need to read are 1, 2, 3, 4. We skipped 5 on the author's methods chart, and then we went to 8 and 9. Okay, so those are the ones you want to read, and you want to, I provided you with sentence stems to use. This is what you want to get done. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. Connections and distinctions on Google Classroom.